Okay, so this is the second Panther video covering the suspension, and we're going to start out by cutting a fireplace matchstick at 37mm in length. So just cut one of those off of there and just push it through these holes that you made last time. This can be a bit of a challenge sometimes. Getting it through the opposite hole isn't always easy. So just be careful when you're pushing it through not to push through a whole bunch of material. And just get it approximately centered. And if there's a difference in height from side to side, you might want to have the flat surface on the top and bottom so you can adjust slightly the position of the caps that cap the end of this axle. So now we're going to take a couple of 12 ring caps, and I've already cut these off the ring, but they're from a ring of 12 rather than 8, which means they're a little bit larger. We're just going to take a utility knife here and cut the ring off as round and carefully as we can, because this is going to be visible in the model. So we want to make it nice and machined looking. Okay. And then just go around the back end, I guess, here, and remove all the flashing that you can see. Don't have to worry too much if there's flashing on this end. It's this end that's visible. So the actual capped end is the visible end. Now there's a bunch of other prep coming up as well. You're going to need 10 11mm buttons, and you're going to have to sand them with rough sandpaper is what I suggest on both sides. And it just helps. It makes them look better when they're installed because they're a little bit scratched up, as wheels would be, and it helps them glue to each other. So I would just recommend sanding them all quite vigorously. Now once you've got the caps to a situation where you're happy with them, they're nice and round, just take a little bit of 4:1 glue here and put it right where the axle here enters the chassis, and put a little bit of glue in each of these caps. We're just going to insert these caps onto the axle, and then slide the axle back and forth a little bit to get a little bit of glue into the hull. And just now, once you've done that, try to make sure the gap between the cap and the hull is equal on both. And also at this point, if you can see that one of the caps looks a little bit higher than the other, you can push it down and push the other one up and make things look a bit more even. Which is why we had the flat side on the top and bottom, so that you can adjust your heights. Now, just set that aside for a while, and you're going to work on getting your buttons ready. I like to use straight glue. You can use 4:1 glue for this, but I like to use straight glue. We're just going to take these buttons, we're going to attach them to the 7mm hole punch discs, and there's a bit of a trick to it, so don't just charge ahead. What I like to do is I like to put on the rear one first, and always there's a flat side and a concave side, like a spoon. always put the concave side out, because the flat side glues much better to the 7mm hole punch disc. And once you've got it on there, look from behind, and you can adjust it to make sure that the button looks centered. And then instead of doing the next one in line, I'll do the center button. And again, flat side down, concave side out. And adjust it from the other side. Now hopefully all your 7mm hole punch discs are in the right position, and this won't be a problem later on. But in case anything is at all out of position, this is a good way to make sure they go back into where they're supposed to be. Now the front button, again, flat side down, but you just want to have it slightly coming out over that bit of cardboard. So now that we've got these three on, we can easily center the other two between them. So I'll just pop this on, and then flip it over. And now that it looks in position, make sure, make sure it looks centered between the others. Nothing changed. It looks fairly nicely centered, actually. And you can test it on the tabletop to make sure the buttons are even horizontally as well. So this operation is exactly the same on both sides. So just continue doing this again on the other side, and you should be good. And that's the second step for constructing the suspension.